Welcome back to the Black Atlas. For today's Tea Leaf discussion, we are joined by Dr. Kevin James, the president of one of the most iconic and historic HBCUs in the country, Morris Brown College.
Yes.
Dr. James, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Okay. So before we get started into the interview, I'd like to learn a bit more about you as the man. Who are you?
Well, my name is Kevin James. I'm originally from Columbia, South Carolina. I have been in Atlanta about a little over 6 years now. Come from a family of educators, the oldest of 5 children, to Doctors Charles and Diane James. Both of my parents were educators. My mother was a teacher, school principal, school superintendent. My father taught for 30 years. And so I was just born into education. I actually tried to run from it. When I graduated from college, I wanted any job except teaching. But God said, no, you're going to teach. And so my first job out of college was teaching. For fun, I love to ride my motorcycle. I'm a Harley Davidson enthusiast. I love to travel. I love to play chess, poker. I mean, I love a lot of thinking games. So, I'm just a regular guy.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great to hear. I wouldn't have expected the Harley Davis.
Oh, yeah. I'm going 200 miles an hour down the highway.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to look out for you on these
Maybe
streets.
not that fast.
Not that fast.
I don't want to incriminate myself.
So you became the president in 2019, and I can only imagine that being the president of any college is not easy.
Right.
But also coming into the situation that Morris Brown was in, can you talk about what it was like for you transitioning into this role?
Sure. Well, before I start, when I saw that the interview, that it was an opportunity for an opening, I was at home and I was watching the news and I saw where my predecessor had retired. And so it took me all of 3 to 5 seconds to say, wow, I want to be the next president of Morris Brown College. I pick up the phone and I called the 6th district of the AME Church. And a young lady answered the phone and I said, listen, I just saw where the president of Morris Brown retired. How do I apply for this position? And she and I talked for a little while. And at the end of the conversation, she said, send me your resume. I'm going to put it directly in the chairman of the board's hands. About a month later, I got an interview. Now, in between time, I called my mentor and I told her, I said, listen, I want to be the next president of Morris Brown College. What do you think about that? And she said to me, she said, Kevin, you realize that's never been done before, right? And I said, what's never been done? She says, no Black college has ever come back 20 years after losing its accreditation. Are you sure about this? And so I said, absolutely, I'm sure. I believe I could do it. She said, if you're serious, I believe you can do it too. And so I went full steam ahead to try to figure out how I was going to work to save this HBCU, how I was going to lead this institution back to her former glory. Mm-hmm. And so it was so many things that I found out on day one, but in preparation, several things that was just public information. $9.5 million to the United States Department of Education, $35 million bankruptcy, the loss of 36 of 42 acres of land, the loss of our accreditation almost 20 years ago, financial instability. So I knew all of those things going in. And so going into the institution, I knew that it was going to be a tough challenge, but I was up for the challenge. And we've absolutely turned the institution around in these last 2 years during this administration, during this presidency. So I anticipate that we're going to take the school to the next level. We got approval by the state, the Georgia Non-Public Post-Secondary Education Commission. We're now got our application approved for our accreditation, and now we just received accreditation candidacy last week. And so the impossible has already been made possible, and we just anticipate taking the institution to the next level. At this point, we're working to apply for federal financial aid. And once we get federal financial aid, I anticipate the floodgates opening up with many, many students that are interested in attending Morris Brown College.
That's absolutely amazing. So you also mentioned financial support, federal financial support.
Yes.
Can you talk about the value of that? People might not realize how important that is for an institution. Can you expand on that?
Well, first of all, HBCUs historically have catered to first-generation college students or students who might need a second chance or students who might need financial assistance. Even folks in the middle class need help. I'm from the middle class. My parents both have PhDs, but I couldn't pay for school myself. So imagine if your parents are making 25 or your family income is only $25,000 a year or something like that. You definitely don't have the resources and means to pay for school. Well, in 2002, when Morris Brown College lost its accreditation, we literally went from 2,700 students to 50 students overnight. Why? Because we lost access to federal financial aid. How am I going to pay for college? And so it's extremely important component to accreditation, the fact that you have access to federal financial aid, like I mentioned, and student loans, and also Pell Grants and other grants that you're eligible for. And so that's one of the major components outside of proving that you're a quality institution. One major component of the accreditation journey is getting that access to federal financial aid so students can pay for college so they can have a means to get a higher education.
Okay. So backtracking a little bit, I hope you're familiar with what an HBCU is, but if you're not, could you talk about HBCUs and the value that they bring to this country?
Sure. Well, an HBCU, the actual definition is an institution that was founded before 1964, whose primary responsibility was the education of Black people. Okay. Back in the day, Black and brown people could not attend the likes of a University of Georgia or a University of South Carolina or a major institution like that. And so HBCUs were started. The first HBCU was founded in 1837, Cheyney University of Pennsylvania. And that was actually even before the end of slavery up in Pennsylvania. Since that time, we've had 130 or so HBCUs, where today we only have 101 remaining. Mm-hmm. That's why Morris Brown's journey is so iconic and historic, because we're the first Black college in history to ever come back 20 years after losing its accreditation. Overall, HBCUs have been primarily responsible for educating Black and brown people throughout this country. No other organization pours into the Black middle class like HBCUs. The only close organization would be the Black church, right? So HBCUs are primarily responsible for 80% of Black doctors, lawyers, pharmacists, teachers. Every field of endeavor that you can think of, HBCUs have poured tremendously into those fields to help diversify the pipelines regarding who is working in those fields of endeavor. So HBCUs are extremely important. And I'm so excited that now in 2021, a lot of major philanthropists and corporations and others are really seeing the value in HBCUs. I believe this year was one of the top years in history regarding the funding of HBCUs, both from private sector as well as the public sector. And so I hope it's not a fad. I hope that, folks continue to see the importance of Black colleges and how they impact the fabric of this country.
Right. I didn't go to an HBCU. I went to a PWI, but I've always said that when I'm in a position to, I will be giving back to HBCUs.
Sure. Well, Morris Brown's a good choice.
I know. Morris Brown's my number one choice. I grew up in Atlanta.
Okay.
Like I said, you all are a historic institution,
yes.
Iconic. Can you talk about the history a bit of Morris Brown, and particularly in its relation to holding on to history? I know that you guys have Stone Hall on the campus that was built by former slaves. Can you talk about the importance of maintaining our history and the role Morris Brown plays in that?
Sure. Well, let me start by just kind of giving a brief overview of how we were started. So in the late 1800s, shortly after slavery, a group of trustee members from Clark College approached the leaders of Big Bethel AME Church, African Methodist Episcopal Church, and said, look, we understand that you all have a lot of meetings in this church. We wanted to approach you guys to see, could we use space in this building, in this church, for classroom space at Clark College? And so they were having a conversation about it. And one of the trustees, Stuart Wiley, stood up and said, well, if we can allow Clark College to use our church for classroom space, why don't we just start our own college? And the bishop of the church, who was our founder, Wesley John Gaines, stood up and said, we can, and with God's help, we will start our own college. Mm-hmm. And so Morris Brown is the only institution in the state of Georgia that was founded by Black people, for Black people, former slaves. Mm-hmm. The African Methodist Episcopal Church is the church denomination that founded us. And so that is the history of the institution. We're founded in 1881, like I said, in the basement of Big Bethel AME Church. And since that time, we've been known as a haven for hungry souls, where we have educated Black and brown people throughout not only the state of Georgia, but throughout this country. And so that is how we were founded. One thing that I say about Black colleges today is that there's no safer place for a Black person to be than on the campus of a HBCU. With all the killing and police brutality and everything that's going on, you don't have to worry about being profiled on the campus of a HBCU. You don't have to worry about someone asking you to, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Are you supposed to be here? Right? And so HBCUs are so important with how we were founded and with the existence of how we are today when it comes to educating us. No other organization educates Black people like HBCUs.
That's for sure. So thank you for giving a little bit of context in the history of Morris Brown. Can you talk about what you see on the horizon? I know that you all have worked out a deal with Hilton. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So when I first started the position, I was walking around the campus and, I have a very strong business background. And I was walking around the campus and I was talking to God and I said, God, help me. How are we going to save this college? And something said to me, God spoke to me and said, use what you got. And so immediately I looked up and I saw a brand new $1.9 billion Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And so Morris Brown has something that no other college in Atlanta has. 3 things: location, location, location. And so my business mind was like, wow, what was your top program back in the day? Hospitality management. And so I was like, I know what we're going to do. We're going to build our own hotel on the campus, and it be potential revenue for the institution. Not to mention, we'll tie it into our hospitality and management program. I pitched the idea to our board after some discussion. They said, go build your hotel. And so we did partner with CGI Merchant Group. That is our investor that partnered with us to help build a $30 million hotel. It's going to be a Hilton branded hotel. And again, it's going to be a diversifying pipeline for Black and brown people to attend Morris Brown. They will learn the Hilton way, and it'll be a direct pipeline for students to learn how to own, manage, be executives, lead, mid-level leadership, entry-level leadership in hotels and restaurants throughout this country.
That's a really innovative response. What would you say to people who might be a little anxious about that, considering gentrification happening in Atlanta and what that would mean to have such a busy hotel on campus at the location that you all are in?
Yeah. Well, good, because if it's busy, that means we're making money, right?
Okay.
And not to mention, it gives our students opportunity to get the hands-on experience that they're going to be looking for. And that's actually what we want. We want to be a busy, thriving, innovative college again. And, and this isn't brand new. It's other colleges in the country that have hotels. We'll be one of the first, we will be the only HBCU that has a nationally known flagged hotel on their campus tied directly to our hospitality program. And so we look forward to that busyness.
I also look forward to that busyness.
Yeah.
So I know that Morris Brown is obviously expanding and calling in for the support of their community. Can you talk about the importance of alumni and what role alumni plays in that expansion?
Sure. I say it all the time. It's only 3 reasons Morris Brown was able to go through 20 years without accreditation. Number 1, God. Number 2, the AME Church. And number 3, the alumni. We have the best alumni on the planet. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, 20 years of no accreditation, 20 years of people thinking that you were closed, that they wrote you off, but the alumni never wavered. And so the alumni are one of the primary reasons why the institution is still open today and how we were able to get through this restoration. The alumni are one of the largest donors to the institution. So extremely important. We appreciate all of our alumni from around the world. We have phenomenal alumni from almost every field of endeavor out there, possible leaders. And so we're just so appreciative to everything that they've done over these years.
Can you talk about how people can support Morris Brown financially? Even if we're not, alum, how could we support you in this?
Anyone who's watching or listening, they can go to our website, morrisbrown.edu, click on that give button. Nothing too small, nothing too great. And we look forward to everybody pouring into the institution financially, especially when the time for talk is over. We've been able to prove that we're moving in the right direction. And so we would appreciate the financial support, because at the end of the day, what we're going to need are the dollars and the resources to be able to operate effectively and efficiently. So we need everybody's support. Again, the website is morrisbrown.edu.
Okay. One last question. When do you envision Morris Brown getting back to the good old days?
Well, students are applying right now. We made the announcement last week, and we had about 200 applications just last week, once after we made the announcement of candidacy. And so we anticipate being back this year. Right now, we're applying for federal financial aid, so we're hoping and praying that we get the federal financial aid. But students are showing an interest in Morris Brown College at this very moment. Anybody who's watching can go to our website again, morrisbrown.edu. Click on that Apply Now button, and we look forward to receiving your application.
Shay, thank you. I've seen students express interest in applying to Morris Brown on social media. So
Absolutely.
I know that the accreditation and all the financial needs are going to be met and multiplied
Absolutely.
by the will of God in our community. I thank you for your service to Morris Brown and to our community. So
Thank you so much.
before we wrap up, I'd like to offer you a gift from Black Atlas. This is Nasty Lemonade. We love to support.
Lemonade.
I know it sounds better than it tastes.
Wow.
We love to support local Black businesses. This is made by a friend of ours who went to Grady High School, him and his family. It's got ginger, rosemary, cane sugar, cayenne, adaptogenic herbs, turmeric, Delta 8 THC. Don't worry, it's not going. You're not going to be out here swasted or anything like that. But it is a great immune booster. Okay. And you can find it at Wadada's in Atlanta. So please enjoy that and share that with other people that you know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So that is all for our tea leaf discussion. We're going to